So if you guys would like to come with me on this journey, let's go. Let's go. And if you don't, too bad. You're coming along anyways. If you try to escape, I hope you don't mind your family members getting killed, because I have all of them in my basement. Every single one. Yeah. Please keep them there.
I know. I am too old to be getting this worked up over a Netflix remake of a cartoon that came out when I was 11.
The weirdest thing about YouTubers and like content creators in general is that they always say like, I'm too old for this and I'm too old for that. But because they never leave the house, they never see the sun. And because they never see the sun, they never take any sun damage or any photo aging. And so they all look like children because they just sit at home recording and editing all day. Which is very funny.
But this is
Why does he sound like John Mulaney? He has the same delivery.
Just any cartoon. It's not like they're rebooting Jimmy Neutron and I'm pissed off about it. Avatar is a nearly perfect series. It's one I enjoyed a lot when I saw it as a kid, but rediscovering it as an adult actually blew my mind. It's a show that moved me to tears multiple times. It's something that the creators clearly put so much thought and care into getting every detail right, from the world building to the music. Now, for a long time, I thought it would be impossible to translate this world into live action, partly because of how intricate and beautiful the animation is, and partly because the last time they tried to do it, it was a fucking disaster. I've seen way too many people say in regards to the Netflix adaptation, hey, at least it's better than the movie. Yeah, I would hope it's better than one of the worst films ever made. You don't get points for that. Because of how goofy and awkward this movie looked, I assumed it just couldn't be done. That this world was simply unadaptable to live action. And in a lot of ways, Netflix proved me wrong. This show looks probably as good as a live-action Avatar could. I mean, nothing will ever truly compare to vibrant and fluid 2D animation, but the VFX team that worked on this did a really good job of making something that very easily could have looked dumb as shit look pretty realistic.
What's interesting is the green screening when they're on Appa is bad, but everything else looked really good. Like all of the fight scenes were gorgeous.
Except for the airbending. I don't know what happened there. Yeah, a lot of the scenes are directed a little jarringly, and it's way too dark sometimes. But with what they were tasked with bringing to life here, I think they deserve a lot of credit. But it's funny to me that Netflix nailed the part that I thought couldn't be done well and messed up all of the stuff that should have been a slam dunk. Let's start with the pilot, because I started writing this video 10 minutes into the first episode. The pilot condenses the first 3 episodes of the animated series into one premiere, which on paper works really well. The end of episode 3 really is where the prologue ends. We've established the world, we've introduced the characters and a little bit of their backstories, and they're literally flying away from their past as they venture forth onto their journey. And while the very beginning of the show doesn't quite reach the heights that it eventually will, I think this is all paced really well and does a good job of doling out enough information to explain what's going on while still having the restraint to hold on to some things that can be revealed when the time is right. We open on 2 of the 3 main characters, Sokka and Katara. We learn that they're siblings who live in the Southern Water Tribe. Katara is a waterbender, Sokka is not. He belittles her ability, they bicker for a bit, it escalates, and then Katara waterbends so hard that a 12-year-old bald kid falls out of an iceberg. Wait, that's not just any bald kid, that's the Avatar. No one's seen him in 100 years. What the hell? No time to stop and explain everything though, because they have inadvertently alerted a nearby Fire Nation ship of their presence. This is Prince Zuko and his uncle Iroh. They've been banished from their home and sent on a now 3-year quest to find the Avatar, a quest that may just be about to end. Some chaos ensues, a fight breaks out, but ultimately with the help of his new friends, Aang is able to escape Zuko, and the 3 of them fly into the sunset. Now that brings us to episode 3, and there is still a crucial piece of information that the showrunners have not yet revealed to Aang because they're waiting until the right moment. The gang heads to the air temple that Aang grew up in, a place where Sokka and Katara know is probably filled with dead airbenders, but they don't have the heart to break it to him. He's so cheerful and excited to just show them where where he used to play with his friends. How do we tell this kid that everyone he knew and loved was murdered by the Fire Nation? Instead, they try to cheer him up and keep him distracted. We see a flashback of Aang's former life. He's talking to his friend and mentor Gyatso, someone who we can tell he clearly cared a lot about. Aang talks about how overwhelmed he is at the thought of being the Avatar, and Gyatso assures him that everything will be all right. We cut back, they keep exploring for a bit, they find Momo, a little pet to go with their big pet. Things are going great until... oh, shit.
Firebenders? They were here? Gyatso.
Oh, man. Come on, Aang. Everything will be all right. Let's get out of here.
This is a really important scene for the beginning of a Nickelodeon show that up until this point has been pretty lighthearted. Seeing your main character, who's just a kid, find out about the death of his entire people and then freak out and have to be calmed down by his friends. It's a really powerful moment that can only happen because the writers held on to this reveal until the time was right to reveal it. So now let's talk about how Netflix handled the pilot. Instead of starting the show on our main characters, we open on an epic chase. This is streaming, baby. We gotta put a fight scene within the first 10 seconds or people are gonna turn it off and go watch Love is Blind. If you don't brutally murder someone right now, I'm taking my ass to free feed. But you know what? I'm fine with this cold open. I understand you're just trying to grab people's attention, and a quick little action sequence that shows how ruthless the Fire Nation can be is not the worst way to do it. But it should have ended here. You say this line.
This isn't about the Airbenders. This is about one who lives among them.
But the Avatar is yet to be revealed.
Which is why we have to kill them all.
And then we cut to present day to the three main characters, similar to how the cartoon did. I actually think that would have been a really effective opening, because if you've never seen the show and you just watch the Fire Lord say, we gotta kill all the Airbenders, and then you cut 100 years into the future and you see an Airbender that survived, you'd probably be like, how did that happen? I'm gonna stick around to find out. Instead, we come back from the title sequence and we're still in the past on the day of the aforementioned invasion. I guess we're just gonna do the whole show chronologically, lest anyone be confused. We meet Aang and Gyatso and see them stand and talk for a while, and then we get to watch some people sit and talk for a while, and we cut back to Aang and Gyatso, and they do more standing and more talking, and then Aang flies away, and a whole bunch of murder happens. Oh my god, so much murder. I'm talking several uninterrupted minutes of murder, because remember, this is a show for grown-ups. Cartoons are for babies. We got a bunch of dead bodies in this one. What's crazy to me about this entire sequence is that while they're so insistent on showing something that I honestly think had more emotional impact to just see the aftermath of, they make no attempt to show us any aspects of Aang's personality. I mean, don't get me wrong, the writers take the time to explain Aang's personality to us. He and Gyatso tell us all about him.
I know who I am. I like to play airball and eat banana cakes and goof off with my friends. That's who I am.
I feel bad for this kid because he seems like a very good actor, but the writers keep giving him lines that make it sound like he's about to burst into song.
Monks don't even trust me to feed the baby bison, and I'm supposed to save the world?
Why can't I just be a kid? This isn't even the worst example of tell, don't show that they do in this episode. Remember I told you about how Aang finds out that all the Airbenders are dead, how he stumbles upon the corpse of his former best friend, surrounded by all of the firebenders it took to take him down? Here's how they do it in this show.
Most of them had just arrived for the Great Comet Festival.
The Great Comet Festival. The last time that the Great Comet was seen in the sky was 100 years ago.
Someone just tells him about it.
Everyone in the village knows this story, but you don't. Just as you don't know that airbenders haven't been seen in generations, and that the Southern Air Temple was the first to fall because you've been trapped in that ice this whole time.
Gran reads out loud the entire opening theme for like 2 straight minutes while he has to just sit there and give reaction faces before running out of the room crying. And then he's sad for like 10 seconds and then everything is fine. No time to mope, buddy. You gotta do another walk and talk. This is infuriatingly bad writing. You took one of Aang's most impactful moments from the beginning of the show and turned it into someone else's monologue. It's so weird to me when shows are clearly in a rush to establish as much information as possible, I guess because they think people will get confused and turn it off if they don't have their hand held through every interaction. But it feels counterintuitive. I think what gets people to continue watching something is mystery. You don't need to answer every question I have within seconds of me having it. You can reveal information in small doses and slowly add to it piece by piece. That's what's going to compel me to keep watching something, not
It's
paragraphs of expo.
It's a fine line between not giving enough backstory and giving too much backstory. Right? Like the reason why initially when I'd watched Cowboy Bebop, I really was infuriated by the show was because we kept getting these like flashback scenes towards like the end of the show. You kept getting these flashback scenes that like were jarring and confusing and none of them made any sense until the very end of the show. And that was really annoying. But you also can't just give everything at once because then it's like, I don't care. I don't care enough. You just have to know exactly how much to give. It's the difference between Twin Peaks and Lost. One does mystery really well. The other fails terribly. Bebop was a setup. I think it pulled it off well. I disagreed. I thought it wasn't... I thought it was. I didn't like the way that they revealed the information. Personally, I didn't. And to be fair, pacing is really difficult to do well. I won't lie. Pacing is very difficult to do well. Lost was plenty good. I remember seeing like the first 2 seasons and then I got bored and then I stopped watching. But the first 2 seasons were really good. And I think that the cartoon Avatar does it perfectly. It reveals the right amount of information exactly when you have the question and no more. It's like, oh, how did he get into that iceberg? And before the end of the episode, it tells you, oh, he got caught in a storm, entered the Avatar state, and the Avatar state protected him. Easy. We don't need to know yet why he was in the storm, why he was flying off. We don't need to know that information. I just wanted to know how he got on the iceberg. And I got that answer. And then later, a little bit later in the future, then they can give us that information when I have the question, wait, why was he flying out anyways? That's like, it's a fine line that needs to be done well. And the cartoon does it perfectly, in my opinion.
Expository dialogue whenever you feel like you've got some lore blanks to fill. It's also weird to me that they still try to recreate the air temple moment in this episode, even though it's not new information for Aang. He goes and sees dead Gyatso, who was evidently much easier.
Quan, Caroline, Quantaraj. Hi, guys. Hi. Hi, everyone. Welcome. I saw you were doing a stream about some of the Nickelodeon stuff, I think. I was going to raid into you. Grr. Stolen Val. But hi, thank you for the raid, Caroline. Thank you. And welcome, everybody. Hi, guys. Hi, welcome. It's also a Sean raid. Oh, was Sean live as well? Did he raid in? Have a good day. Yes, of course. I know it's early for you. Please go get some rest. Go get some rest. I know. Also, welcome, Sean Raiders. Hi, guys. Hi. Yes. So, welcome, everybody. We're just actually talking about, I don't know how many of you guys have seen it, but we were talking about Avatar: Last Airbender and about how we're watching a Drew Gooden video on how the cartoon is just like so much better than the live action remake. Echo Waves, thank you for the 2 months. Welcome. Yeah, the cartoon is just like, it just does everything better. And we're just talking about like how bad the exposition is. Socialism is when no fun. Thank you for the 20 gifts. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. One Piece does an amazing thing where every time a question gets answered, like 5 more get introduced. Yes, Yes. And again, it's like it's very hard to do. It's very hard to write good pacing and to do like good exposition where it's not too much, but it's not too little. Because you don't want people to just constantly be like, I don't understand. I don't understand. Like, I want to know more information. And like episodes and episodes and episodes and episodes, and you still haven't gotten anything. But you also don't want like hours of fucking exposition. Nobody wants hours of fucking exposition. Jesus Christ. It's kind of like playing a board game. Nobody wants, so many people don't play D&D because it's literally, you have to spend hours reading how the game works. What's an action? What's a bonus action? What's a reaction? I don't know. What's the difference between these? What do you mean I can't just walk away from my enemy? What do you mean that that's an action to do that? Like, it's a lot of that. Once you get into it, it's great, but getting into it is just hard. Hayden, thank you. Thank you for the gift sub. I haven't seen One Piece. It's so long. I've watched like 300 episodes of One Piece. And then one of the characters dies apparently, and I got spoiled and I lost my interest in the show and I haven't watched. But I watched the first episode of the live action of One Piece. It was pretty good.
Airplane food?
It was like, I don't know if it was my cup of tea, but I think they did a pretty good job. I only watched the first episode of the live action. I think with what they were working for, they did a really good job making it fun. It's very hard to convert. Oh, there's an amazing episode on from, I think it's like the Mother's Basement channel that does like anime reviews and stuff. But there's an amazing episode from them about how it's really hard to do horror, or maybe it was from Super Eye Patch Wolf. It's very hard to do horror in anime because the animation doesn't lend itself to that. It's a lot scarier to watch a person that looks like you in a dark, scary situation. It's not that scary when it's a cartoon, or at the very least, it's very hard to make it scary. It's why people have like a fan level attachment to Junjo Ito. It's because he's one of the few people that actually can do it well. And that's in a manga form, which again, manga is also better for that because you have the page flip that's terrifying. It's like, oh God, what's going to be on the next page? Japanese scary as shit. Oh, to be clear, Japanese movies, like the directors in Japan that make horror films, those people can make horror. I don't watch American scary movies because I'm such a little bitch. I tried watching a Japanese horror movie once and I almost shit my pants. I was like, I'm done. I'm done. Nope. I was like 5 minutes in. I was like, nope. Done. Nah. No. American Ring, the American version of The Ring, scared me shitless to the point where like I couldn't stop having nightmares for like a year. I was like, the idea of watching the other one was no, it was not. But in the same vein, I think it's very hard to make a very almost like lighthearted, bubbly live action. And I think the One Piece live action does it really well. Liam, thank you for the gift sub. I thought that the live action One Piece did it really well. It felt very lighthearted. It felt very bouncy. Everything felt very cartoony in a way that normally is very difficult to do in live action. Whimsy. That's the word I was looking for. Whimsy. Exactly. Japanese Cairo versus American Pulse are very different. American version was awful. I did watch the live action One Piece though. There's that. It's good. It's not bad. So I don't remember why we got on this topic. Anyways, yeah, exposition and the live action version of Avatar is just way too much exposition, way too much tell, not show. Ugh, it was just not. It also helps that one of the live action creators is a One Piece fan. Yeah. There were a lot of stylistic choices I disagreed with in One Piece in the live action version. I thought the dialogue needed to be changed. There's a lot of scenes in anime where the characters can be talking to themselves, and it's not weird. But when you put that in American media with like real actors, it is weird. Like Luffy, for example, talking to himself and being like, oh, that's where he puts the third sword. In the in the anime, it's great. It's fine. It's perfectly fine. I think it's because anime fans are used to so much like of the main characters just talking to themselves and doing these like long fucking monologues. Whereas in the live action, seeing Luffy talk to himself and being like, that's where he puts the sword. It's like, this would work better if he was talking to Nami and he was looking over at Nami and he was like, Nami, look, that's where he puts the sword. It's like, oh, that works so much better. That would have been way, way, way better. But I get it. They were just trying to like stick a little bit more to the classic. And for what they were working with and what they had, they did a really good job. They did a very good job. So I thought it was good. I thought it was one of the best remakes of like an anime. And it got a lot of the important things down. I actually haven't watched the Cowboy Bebop live action. I haven't seen it. Anyways, moving on. Let's go back.
Easier to kill this time around and still goes bananas and still has to be calmed down, but it doesn't really make sense because he already knows about this.
My friends, they're all gone.
What is he doing? It actually feels like kind of an overreaction considering he barely gave a shit about it earlier. Also in the original, Katara is
Sonic experience.
Stop.
The one to calm Aang down while he's in this state. She tells him that she knows what it's like to lose someone you love, but the world needs him, and they're here to help no matter what. It's a great moment for the three of them because it gives closure to Aang's past while bridging the gap into this present journey they're about to go on. In this version, Katara just watches while we see a bunch of flashbacks from earlier in the episode, in case you were looking at your phone during that part.
And this is the biggest sin you can commit as a TV show or an anime or a cartoon. Shows that do flashbacks to something I saw 5 minutes ago. I just saw it. I don't need to see it again. He just looks like he's taking a shit right now. He kind of does. I don't need a flashback referring to earlier in the episode. I was watching. I was literally watching, okay? There's hand holding and then there's just insulting me.
You are my friend.
I really don't understand the obsession with Gyatso in this version. He is an important character, but more so as a memory for Aang, like a symbol of what he lost. He's not that relevant to the present day journey they're about to go on. What matters the most is their relationship. Their friendship is the foundation that this entire series is built on. So I think you're doing a huge disservice to that by taking interactions away from Katara and Sokka so you can give them to a guy who died 100 years ago. They do this multiple times in the show. They keep bringing Gyatso back instead of giving that valuable screen time to the more important characters. They even do this in the opening title scroll in the pilot episode. In the original, Katara is the one who does this voiceover, which kind of establishes the show as being from her point of view. And the very iconic lines she says at the end,
"But I believe Aang can save the world,"
actually tell us something about her. They tell us that she's optimistic and believes in her friends no matter what. So they actually managed to add characterization into a sequence that is at its core exposition. It's a very efficient use of dialogue.
So
in the
good.
remake, they take this away from Katara so they can, again, give it to a character who died 100 years ago. And that's not even mentioning the fact that everything that's said in this version of the title sequence gets repeated multiple times throughout the episode. It's a very inefficient use of dialogue.
The Avatar. The one person with the ability to master all 4 elements. The Avatar. The next master of all 4 elements.
Only the Avatar. The one person who can master all 4 elements.
Only the Avatar, master of all 4 elements. But when the world needed him most, he vanished.
When the world needed the Avatar the most, he vanished.
Episode 1 shouldn't feel as rushed at the end as it does. It's
This
roughly
is all in the first episode, by the way.
same runtime as the 3 episodes it's adapting. So it's not that they didn't have the time to tell the story, it's that they misused the time they had. They add in all this stuff that probably would have been better if it was just kept a mystery. They waste so much time repeating the same information just from different sources, and they replace interesting character development moments with vague mumbo jumbo.
Bending is about energy and balance. By feeling the energy around you, you can find balance. By finding balance, you can feel the energy.
Aang, what the fuck are you talking about? Remember, energy is balance, which is energy, which is balance. Whoa, thanks, Aang. I'm waterbending. Before I continue just getting mad about every single aspect of this show, I do want to answer a more general question of like, what should we expect out of an adaptation? Because it may sound like I'm trying to say that this should have been a one-to-one recreation of the original show, when that is not the case. You can and should be able to change things. Why?
And that is also my point that I was trying to make, because I saw when we were watching the live action on the other channel, I saw a lot of people saying like, this is not what Katara is supposed to be. This is not what Aang is supposed to be. Aang is not supposed to be like this. This person's not supposed to be. And it's like, I disagree with that criticism because it's a different show. I don't think I have, I don't have a problem with characters being changed. I don't have a problem with a different adaptation of different or like of the same character. Because if I wanted to watch the same thing, I would just go watch the original cartoon, right? That's it. Like, I'm okay for changes. I just think the changes have to work. A great example, I don't know if he's going to mention it, but the example that I've harped on is the dynamic between Iroh and Zuko. Those characters have been changed in a way that I thought was pretty fundamental. And I was a little concerned about at first, and I thought it was a good change. So in the cartoon version, Iroh doesn't really take anything seriously. He's frequently regarded as lazy. You don't really respect him as a character. You kind of just think he's kind of a bum until later you find out that he's actually this incredible firebender war criminal who has realized that his path was not right, which is why he's so different as a person now and why he's transitioned into like the complete opposite of what he used to be, right? And so he just kind of lays around and enjoys tea and snacks and playing music and just chilling and enjoying life. And Zuko, being the driven person that he is, and also being a kid, because he's like 14 or 15 in the cartoon, he doesn't understand why his uncle is just so blasé about everything. He's like, you don't understand. Like, I don't get to treat everything like you do. I'm not as lazy as you are. And so he doesn't respect him. Like, Zuko has very little respect for Iroh. He respects him as someone who is good at firebending, but beyond that, he doesn't really respect him. And he frequently disobeys him. He frequently does what he wants. He acts like a kid. And that's an interesting dynamic that works very well in the cartoon. The live action was like, we're changing this. We don't want them to be a lighthearted dynamic that kind of bickers and argues. We don't want a rebellious teenager. No. We want these characters to be like this. And in the live action, they introduce a scene of like Iroh's kid's funeral. They introduce scenes where they become closer together. And there's a lot of scenes where Zuko listens to his uncle. Like, his uncle says, no, we shouldn't do this. And Zuko's like, okay, fine. I trust you. And the dynamic works. It was great. I loved the dynamic. I thought it was a different dynamic that worked really well, actually. It was like a different world where, like, what would the universe look like if Zuko and Iroh were like friends and Zuko actually respected his uncle's opinions? I thought that was, just because something is different doesn't mean that it's bad. It's just different. I thought it was equally as good. I thought the live action Zuko Iroh dynamic was just as good as the cartoon Zuko and Iroh. I think that they both worked. I think that they're different for sure. And you might have a preference for sure. They were both effective at creating characters who had interesting dynamics with each other. That was good. Katara and Sokka, Jesus Christ, what a mess. They changed the characters in the worst ways. I feel like the cartoon also has the same dynamic. It's just fast tracking the Zuko's evolution. Yes, I agree with you actually, Spark. Because eventually Zuko realizes that his uncle is not this like lazy bum, and actually his wisdom comes in his ability to let things go and understand that like vengeance is not everything. And if you live your life for vengeance, you're not living life. And they eventually take on the same dynamic that they have in the live action. Iroh decides to live a life of peace. Yes. So anyways, I'm fine with changes. I'm totally fine with, you want to make the show a little bit more serious? Cool. That's totally fine with me. That's fine. You want to make Sokka a serious character? Bold move. Let's see how it plays out. Oh, you did it in the worst way. You removed his comedy and put nothing in its place. Nothing. So now he's just this like annoying character that follows around with Aang. He's just boring Ben Shapiro. Like, if you're going to take something away from the character, you have to put something in. Otherwise, you're just ruining the show.
I even bother spending all this money to make something that looks worse if it's going to be exactly the same. But those changes need to enhance the story. They can't be at odds with the spirit of the show or fundamentally change a character. So that brings me to episode 2. In the months leading up to this show's release, I kept seeing aggregated quotes about it from cast members, from the creators, and every time I did, it made me a little bit less optimistic about what we were going to get. One of those quotes was how the creators of the show very nobly got rid of the sexism that Sokka had a little bit of at the beginning of the cartoon. Because that was 2005, and we're a lot smarter now. Obviously, I don't need to tell you that there are tons of movies and TV shows from 20 years ago that absolutely have not aged well. But I think you're missing the point if you try to lump this show in with those. Sokka is an overconfident but misguided teenage boy who grew up isolated from the rest of the world, where he has been tasked with being the sole leader and protector of his entire village. As a result, he begins the show with a pretty dated sense of what men and women should be expected to do. He's constantly making belittling remarks to his sister. He meets the warriors on Kyoshi Island and is relieved to see that they're just girls. Here's the thing, though. The show is not glorifying his behavior. In fact, they're very much doing the opposite. Because you know what happens right after he says these things? He is immediately proven wrong. He underestimates Suki and the rest of the Kyoshi warriors, and they kick his ass. He's so embarrassed by this that he comes back with his tail between his legs and apologizes and begs to learn from them. It is...
Why do you think, guys, people ask me this a lot, where does your name come from? Why do you think I like Sunny in Philadelphia? I don't like Sunny in Philadelphia because I'm like a staunch, racist, sexist piece of shit. It's because the main characters of the show are total pieces of garbage that constantly get shit on. The joke is always about them. We are laughing at the main characters. The main characters are not good people. They are not good people, and the show never makes you think that they are good people. That's why characters like Rickety Cricket exist. Like, they exist to show you, hey, this is what you don't do. And that's why so many people who like the show are cool, like lefties. Just cool, normal people. And because it does a very good job at making fun of really shitty people. You're not supposed to really like the characters. You're supposed to like watching them be morons on the TV. You think the showrunner turned down some flaws to reduce harassment some actors get for being unlikable in some sense? That is optimistic thinking, and I'm going to go with that, even though I don't think that that's the case. Also, cursed catism. Thank you. That's very sweet of you. And also, why? Thank you for the tier 1. Thank you.
Meant to be a humiliating and humbling experience for him, one that also props up the women around him. It's vindicating for Katara, who's had to deal with this bullshit her whole life, and it establishes Suki as a badass. It's not unchecked. It's not something that the showrunners are celebrating. His misogyny is immediately met with repercussions. Are we really at a point where we can't even show a character on TV doing something morally disagreeable? Can audiences truly not understand the difference between a real-life human being expressing a shitty belief and that belief being portrayed in a piece of fiction? And look, I'm not here to die on the hill that you gotta keep the misogyny in the show, man. It was so funny. Like, there's other ways for the writers to show Sokka having a flaw that Suki can use to get a leg up on him. So what do instead? She walks in on him taking a bath and just fucking stands there staring at him with googly eyes. And then in their training scene together, they have to stop every 10 seconds because of all the sexual tension.
Avoided. We've avoided a lot of things by living the way we do.
Jesus Christ. Do you see the point that I'm trying to make here? Instead of Suki being this cool and confident intellectual superior to Sokka, who always has the upper hand on him and is always able to shut him down whenever he tries to pull some shit, they decided to just make her so horny she can't function. I gotta say, it's a little ironic that in an attempt to remove sexism from the show, they actually took a more sexist approach to designing her character. They stripped away everything that made her who she was, made her absolutely obsess over Sokka, who doesn't do anything to earn it, and then they have the nerve to act morally superior to the original writers. Also, does anyone in this village respect privacy? Shaking my damn head. On the topic of absolutely...
Totally agree. Also, the reason why Suki ends up liking Sokka is not because he's like sexy and she sees him shower. It's because she respects that he is not someone who's like so stubborn that he can't admit when he's wrong. And that actually he is someone with good moral values and he will put himself at harm's risk in front of other people. Like, even if he knows he is not the strongest person there, his sense of duty is more important to him than his safety. Like, he has the character, like he has a good character and he's a good person. And he knows when to admit when he's wrong. And she's such a serious character. She has some yokes and everything, but she's a very serious character. And he is kind of like the foil to her character where he's just constantly cracking jokes. And she, like, it grows on her. It's like, oh, like, he's a good guy and he's just trying to have a good time. And he's willing to grow and learn and all this other stuff. Like, yeah, Sokka brings out her goofy side. Yes, exactly. It's like she gets to experience parts of life that she hasn't experienced before because she's around him. Like, he provides something in her life. It's not just like, there's no men in my village and I'm so horny. I'm so horny. I can't eat. I don't even care. It could be anyone. It's just this isn't good enough. It's like, what? This is terrible. This is awful. It's not good.
Destroying strong female characters. Let's talk about Katara. Her entire...
Katara is just like, I only have one note on Katara, which is just terrible. Worst character downgrade I have seen in my entire life. There will never be a female character that is worse than Katara in the live action first season. Nothing. Never. Ever.
Her arc in the show is just, man, I'm not so good at bending. And then Aang is like, yeah, you are. And she's like, huh, you're right. I'm actually the best. She is not given any personality whatsoever. Her entire existence is tied to her waterbending ability, which is not what made her such a great character in the cartoon. Instead of showing how fiery and passionate Katara can be, and how her optimism sometimes backfires because the world they're living in is so beaten down, and how she can be a great leader and friend to everyone around her, not just because she's strong, but because she's empathetic and brings out the best in people. They just made her real good at fighting.
He also doesn't bring up something else, which is in the live action, she doesn't have any flaws. She's pretty soft-spoken. She's very agreeable. Classic woman, as Jordan Peterson would say. She doesn't have anything that defines her. She kind of just exists. In the cartoon, she has all these positive traits about her. She's, like he said, she's empathetic. She's a natural leader. She's there when she needs to be. She's very optimistic. She's the reason why Aang basically continues his journey. There are so many times that without her, Aang would have given up. And she makes sure, she's like, we can do this. You can do this. I believe in you. But she also has a huge ego. And she's also very stubborn. And she's very selfish sometimes. And she does not know when to quit, and she has way too much pride. Like, way too much. Like in the cartoon, they get the waterbending scroll, and she's like mad that she can't learn as fast as he can. She's like, here, I'll teach you this one. Here's how you do it. It took me months to get this one down, so don't worry if it takes you. Oh, you can do it already. Okay, well, how about this? Oh, you can do it already. Okay, well, what about this scroll? Just hold it right there. Let me learn it. Oh, you can do it, and I can't. You learned it immediately. And then she loses her mind in anger, and she's like, I won't take the scroll. It's yours now. And then she sneaks in on the night, and she's like, I'm getting the fucking scroll. I'm learning how to do this fucking bending. She has flaws. Those are flaws in her character. She's jealous that Aang is good at bending just naturally. Just good character, right flaws in your characters. It makes them good. It makes them compelling. It makes them feel real. It makes them feel real. Exactly, yeah. But instead, they just kind of made her exist, and that's it. Even the part where, Master Paku won't teach women waterbending, the fact that she suddenly is like, I'm gonna fight him, feels so random. It's like, what? What? But you haven't fought for anything this entire show, and now you've decided you're going to take a stand against something? Okay. And then she's also so good at fighting that he agrees to teach her. She didn't even need to be taught. She's just automatically good. What? Why does she even want to get taught? Excuse me, teached. Stop, I'm making fun of you. But why? Why? Whereas in the cartoon, she's worse than he is. And he's actively holding back. He acted like Master Paco is actively being like, I'm not going to hurt you. I know I'm better than you. But because she fights with such ferocity, and then she drops her necklace, Paku sees the necklace and he realizes he lost the love of his life being a dipshit sexist. He's not going to make the same mistake twice. It's like, wow, I love this woman and my stupid ass was so terrible and so annoying, she left. She literally was like, I'm going to the other side of the globe. Goodbye. And he realizes, like, I lost one of the most important things to me because I'm a fucking boomer with some stupid ass boomer ideology. I just fumbled the biggest baddie on the planet, and I'm still the same person I was. No wonder she fucking left. No wonder she left. And then that's when he realizes, like, oh, why the fuck am I doing this? Dude was such an incel, she had to escape to the other pole. He literally fumbled an arranged marriage. Omega dance. Oh my. Moved as far away as she could. I don't ever want this dude to find me, ever. Biggest baddie, though, was Avatar Kyoshi. Okay, you're not wrong. Avatar Kyoshi was like the biggest baddie. Not just because she was really tall, but yeah. Yeah. So anyways, moving on. I really do think that, like, Katara was the worst fumble in that show. Worst fumble in that show.
And that's it.
You are a waterbender. That is who you have always been and always will be.
And she doesn't even need any help because she's so talented. Always has been, in fact.
I wasn't even really trying.
It's just not an interesting choice when compared to how the original show handled her growth. They had this great episode early on where Katara gets jealous of Aang because he's the Avatar and everything just comes so easily to him. But what this showed about her character is that she desperately wants to be good at waterbending, will go to great lengths to be able to do it, and has to work twice as hard as Aang. So when we get to the end of the season and she does surpass him in skill, we know it's because she worked really hard to get there. And that is more admirable.
I did not rewatch. He rewatched my stream.
Than her just being handed this power. I mean,
also, the mildest spoiler, like, if a spoiler was a loaf of bread, this is a crumb in the loaf. The reason why Aang is very good at waterbending very immediately is because waterbending and waterbending and airbending are very similar in their fluidity, and that they are very, like, light motions. And so because he's already so good at airbending, waterbending comes really naturally to him. When he eventually gets to earthbending, it's really difficult for him because he can't do it. Like, when he eventually starts getting taught by a teacher how to earthbend accurately, she's like, you have to stop dodging. Block, goddammit. Stop trying to run away from your problems. Just lift up some fucking stone and block, goddammit. And it's very hard for him. It's very, do you even lift, bro? Yeah, yeah. So it was very easy for him to pick up waterbending. Isn't this whole video a spoiler already? Only for the first season. Is Aang bad at firebending, or does he not? Does he just, like, not need to firebend, or does he just not like to firebend? They get to that later, and that's like the third season, so I don't want to spoil it for people who haven't seen it. Oh, hi, Michelle. I'm excited to see how they'll fuck up Toph. Yeah. Ugh. Isn't it the last one that he learns? Yeah. Yeah. The firebending arc is important to his development. Yeah. Firebending is yeah, it's later.
Literally handed. Gran just gives her this scroll that in the original show, she went to great lengths to steal. For Katara, her main motivation in season 1 is to get to the Northern Water Tribe so she can find someone to teach her waterbending, something she's always wanted but has never had access to because she's always been the only waterbender in her tribe. And then they finally get to the North Pole, and I guess she doesn't actually need that because instead of asking Paku to train them, she begs him to let her fight. First of all, why are you asking permission? He's not gonna stop you. Just go do it. What, is he gonna follow you around and tie your hands behind your back because you're trying to fight the Fire Nation? Just go fucking do it. But the point they're trying to make is that she's so powerful, she doesn't even need someone to teach her. Okay, Well, then why doesn't she just go defeat the Fire Lord herself? She has this line at one point where she's like, "We need you, Aang. I need you." No, you don't. You don't seem to really need anyone. The fact that everything comes so easily to her makes it so there's no payoff at the end.
But the people who did the VFX, beautiful. Ugh. The people who did the VFX for this show, I hope they get like great jobs after this, even though the show itself, the writing wasn't good, because the VFX in the show was very good. Other than like the bad green screening, which to be honest, I chalk that up to bad budgeting. Because if they were this talented, if the VFX and the costume team was this talented to be able to do this, I assume it was an under budgeting problem, and that's why the green screening on Appa looked bad. Because the fighting just like look at this waterbending scene. Look at how amazing this looks so much better than the cartoon.
The fact that everything comes so easily to her makes it so there's no payoff at the end. It makes this line...
You found a master, haven't you?
You're looking at her.
Kinda dumb, actually. All you did was read one scroll that your grandma gave you, and now you're a waterbending master? What a journey, huh? This story will be told for generations. They gave her zero depth in this show, and it's really frustrating. You may notice, well...
This is like, by the way, peak Mary Sue. Dusto, stop.
Watching this show that Netflix seems to have a fear of giving any of the main characters an unlikable trait. God forbid any of these children ever make a mistake or have a redemption arc. They need to start the show already perfect. That is such a boring way to write your characters. It's also a huge disservice to your actors by giving them nothing to work with. One of the foremost characteristics of Aang early on in the show is that he's still just a kid. He's a 12-year-old boy who has been given this overwhelming responsibility of saving the world. It's something that understandably scares the shit out of him, so much so that he runs away. That's how he ends.
Also, very important to note. Oh, he's a monk. He is non-violent by nature. He knows saving the world means he has to go kill people. He doesn't want to kill anyone. He's a vegetarian. He's literally pacifism, vegetarian build. He doesn't want to be part of war. He doesn't want to do any of those things. Like, he's vegan? No, he's not. He drinks like milk in some parts of the show. He loves all creatures. Yeah, he's vegetarian. He definitely killed firebenders when they invaded the North Pole. He was in the Avatar state. He wasn't in control of his body. He also says in the show that he's vegetarian. Yes. He just thinks it's not. He just thinks it's he's just against killing people. So, of course, he doesn't want the job of the Avatar, the person who has to make difficult decisions on who gets to live and die. He doesn't want that.
Ends up in the iceberg for 100 years. It's the inciting incident of the entire show. That guilt follows him, and it's a really important part of his growth. But Netflix seemed to be so concerned with having their main character make an incorrect decision that they changed the reason for him flying out into the middle of a storm to him just going for a stroll.
You're right. Just needs to go up where things always make more sense.
I gotta go up where things make more sense. The ground ain't so good for thinking. Don't worry, guys, it was just an accident. He wasn't avoiding responsibility because he's a child who wasn't ready for it yet. He was just getting some fresh air. In the middle of a lightning storm. Okay, great. So instead of him showing signs of immaturity, he's actually just an idiot. Another thing about Aang still being a kid is that he's not always focused on the task at hand.
Oh yeah, I saw my first episode of the animated show in here the other day. Immediately after everyone told me he was a pacifist and would not suffocate people, they lured the whole Fire Nation army into a mountain and exploded. So I call that Batman rules on murder. Well, to be fair, he wasn't the one who decided to explode the mountain. That was Sokka. Sokka doesn't have a problem with killing things.
That's something he has to grow into. This is his very first line in the original show.
Will you go penguin sledding with me?
He's constantly getting distracted and wanting to go on side quests because he's a little boy. Of course, it's not like that the whole show, but it gives him a starting point, so by the end, you can see how much he's matured. Netflix Aang don't got a whimsical bone in his body. He is extremely serious and solely focused on getting from point A to point B. He's not written like a child. He's already the season 3 version of Aang. Netflix, if you want your characters to be able to grow, they need to have a place to grow from. Yeah, he takes the time to deliver his little soliloquies about how much he yearns to goof, but those are just words. We never actually see him do those things. It also makes it so his whole interaction with Boomy makes no sense. Boomy's like, there's no time for fun, Aang. You've got to go save the world. It's like, yeah, he knows that. He's already very good at not having any fun. This is one of the worst written arcs in the entire show because everything they say contradicts what they're doing. Boomy tells him to quit playing games and go do your job as the Avatar. Meanwhile, he's the one holding him hostage, giving him games to play. Aang wants to leave the entire time. Just let him go and he'll do the things you're asking him to. Aang's immaturity also lends really well to the narrative shift that happens in the first season, because for a long time he's like, yeah, I gotta save the world eventually, but first let's go here and fuck around here for a little bit. And then we get to episode 8 and the former Avatar is like, no dude, you actually have to defeat the Fire Lord by the end of the summer, because this comet is gonna come, and if you don't do it before that, he's gonna be invincible.
Mastering the elements takes years of discipline and practice. But if the world is to survive, you must do it by summer's end.
It's this great shift in momentum that adds even more stakes to the equation. It puts a timer on everything. They kind of do that in this one. They give him a vision of the North Pole being attacked, but that doesn't do anything to address the overarching goal of having to learn and master all 3 of the elements. Something that, small note here, he doesn't do any of the entire season. They set that up as one of the main goals in the original first season, and we see a bunch of examples of Aang learning waterbending and before having it pay off in the finale. Aang doesn't waterbend once in this version. He's so behind, it's actually stressing me out.
It would have been wise to have focused on your training during your journey.
I swear to God, if they start season 2 and Aang is already very good at waterbending, implying that there was a bunch of progress that happened off screen, I'm gonna lose my mind.
They're going to.
And don't try to tell me that I already have. This is me on a good day. As you watch more of the show, it makes a lot of
can we talk about the speech Boomy gave to Aang in the show? About like the harsh reality of war and choosing who lives and dies. It was pretty good. So I think in the context of the original show, that would have been pretty good. I think because they fucked up Boomy so bad and they fucked up Aang so bad, it's hard to see anything objectively from that episode. But I do agree that like Boomy teaching him like, I'm sorry, I have to explain this to you, but sometimes you have to pick who gets to live and die. And I know you don't want to, and I know who you are, but you have to. I thought that was like, that would have worked if anything else was good in that episode.
Additions more frustrating because everything has a cost. If you have to cut out character development moments so you have the space to show a bunch of airbenders getting set on fire, you might want to take a step back and reconsider your priorities. It starts to become a little obvious why the creators of the original show left this project almost 4 years ago over creative difference.
Says here, though I got to work with some great individuals both on Netflix side and our own small development team, the general handling of the project created what I felt was a negative and unsupportive environment. To be clear, this was not a simple matter of us not getting our way, he added. Mike and I are collaborative people. We did not need all of the ideas to come from us. As long as we felt that those ideas were in line with the spirit and integrity of Avatar, we would have happily embraced them. However, we ultimately came to the belief that we would not be able to meaningfully guide the direction of the series. Again, going back to Zuko and Iroh, I thought that the change worked. I thought it was fine, and I thought they were a pleasure to watch. There was never a moment where Zuko and Iroh were on the screen, and I was like, ugh, boring. I love that. And chances are they probably had a lot of impact on those characters.
According to them, they were promised that they would be given the job of guiding the show in the right direction, and they were lied to. Dude, I'm so tired of these dumbass executives who make $2 million every second getting involved in things that they have no knowledge in. Why even hire the original creators of the show if you're just gonna ignore their input and act like you know their story better than they do? Why the concern over making characters unlikable when that was never a problem to begin with? Everybody loved Katara and Sokka and Aang, even with their imperfections. Imperfections are what make characters relatable. And it's like, this was all supposed to be the problem with network TV. Streaming was supposed to be the solution to this. We're not going to micromanage and enforce a bunch of arbitrary rules. We're just going to trust the showrunners to do the job that we hired them to do. Yet somehow over the course of the past decade, we've just kind of reinvented cable. So, good job, everyone. I honestly wouldn't be surprised to learn that most of the issues with this version of Avatar are the result of meddling from people who should have just stayed the hell away, because there is potential here. Underneath all of the baffling decisions are the bones of what could have and could still be a much better series. For starters, I think they did a fantastic job with the casting. I imagine it's way harder to cast for live action than animated, because not only do they have to have the perfect voice, but they also need to look the part and be the right age, and in this case, be able to do martial arts. The fact that they're able to check so many boxes with these kids is impressive. I just hope that going forward, they get better material to work with. The only character they consistently write well for is Zuko. This guy's got it. He totally nails the intimidating on the outside, but a little sensitive on the inside. And between him, Iroh, Zhao, Lieutenant Chi, I think almost all of the Fire Nation scenes were more cohesive and well written than anything that the rest of the cast was forced to do. Going back to my point that you can and should be able to make changes in an adaptation if they make sense, I thought a couple of the additions they made to Zuko's character worked perfectly. One, there's the reveal that the crew Zuko protected from being sacrificed in the meeting that led to his banishment is actually the same crew that he's been commanding for the past 3 years since then. So I thought that was a really cool way of tying everything together. It makes so much sense that I was actually surprised when I went back and rewatched season 1 of the animated series and realized they didn't do that originally. I also like the scenes they added with him and Iroh, like the flashback to Iroh's son's funeral, where we see Zuko give him his condolences as well as a gift to remember his son by. They have another moment like that at the end of this episode where Zuko is about to set off on his never-ending quest to find the Avatar, and Iroh's like, hey, mind if I come along? And Zuko's pretty resistant to the idea, but then Iroh says this:
everything I need is on this boat.
It's a very sweet moment, especially with the little nod they do to Leaves from the Vine, a famously sad episode from season 2. But I do think it's worth pointing out that this only works for the people who have already seen the entire animated series. This only has the emotional weight that it does if you're going into this show with 30 hours.
But even if you're not going into the show with 30 hours of context, I think that they did a very good job. Even if you weren't, I think that, like, and it's hard because I'm going to be biased, obviously, but the original, or not the original, the live action version, I felt like if you had never seen Avatar, every single Fire Nation scene was probably pretty good.
Of context.
Do you think that the Fire Nation characters are good because they weren't afraid of giving bad traits to them? I mean, yeah, a big part of it is that for sure.
This is episode 4 of the live action. If this is your first exposure to these characters...
Oh, with zero context, I will say that the Fire Nation people were the only ones with compelling scenes. And Iroh and Zuko or whatever seemed cool as hell. Cool. Okay, yeah. So I think that they were good even if you've never seen the original show. And I think if you've seen the original show, they were even, like, better.
This moment is not going to have nearly the same significance to you. It's nice, but it feels a little premature. Netflix Avatar has an instant gratification problem where they don't want to set anything up that can be paid off later. They just want that payoff now. And I get that some of that was probably due to the uncertainty over whether they would even get a season 2 and 3. So they were trying to be as impactful as they can with this first season, but it's only going to make their job harder in the future. Like, where do you even go with some of these characters? There was one big change with Zuko that feels emblematic of the entire philosophy they approach this show with. There's an episode in season 1 of the cartoon called The Storm, where we see these juxtaposed flashbacks of Aang and
That
Zuko's
episode's
past,
so good.
and we learn about the moments that sent them on the trajectories they're now on. For Aang, it's running away from home, and for Zuko, it's getting banished from home. He speaks out of turn in a war meeting and disrespects everyone in the room by saying they should come up with a better plan. Ozai does not appreciate this, and he tells Zuko that he's going to have to do an Agni Kai, aka a firebending duel. But when Zuko shows up, he is shocked to find out that it's not the general he's supposed to fight, it's his own dad. Zuko begs not to have to fight him. In fact, he outright refuses, but this only makes Ozai more angry. Zuko has now disrespected him twice, so he burns his face and tells him he cannot come back home until he finds the Avatar. The Netflix version plays out pretty similarly, but with one major difference. This time, Zuko fights back. Because why would we keep one of the most important moments of the show when we'd be missing out on an awesome fight scene? Look at all the fire! Zuko refusing to fight his dad was the best way to show us who he is. How, unlike his father, he's not willing to...
Well, I think I disagree with this, to be honest, personally. I thought it was fine because there's the scene where, like, he's about to, I don't know, flame blast his dad, and he hesitates because he's like, he doesn't want to. I thought that change was fine. I disagree with Drew on this one. I think that scene was, it carried enough of the same weight. And it's still used against him. It's like, look, you're weak. You can't even fucking finish the job. So I actually thought it was fine. I had zero problem with that. I thought that was like a change that, I don't know why they made the change, but sure.
Hurt the people he loves. Netflix kind of respected that idea. I mean, Zuko does refuse to fight for a few seconds, and he does eventually get burned by his uncaring father. The problem is you can't justify Zuko getting banished forever because he lost a fight to the world's most powerful firebender. That wouldn't make any sense. So they had to add in another wrinkle to make sense of their first wrinkle, which is that Zuko actually could have won. He just chose not to. And that's where this scene completely loses me. Ozai is supposed to be the ultimate threat, the world's most feared villain, looming over every second of Aang's journey. And you're telling me some random 13-year-old kid could beat him in a fight? What are we doing here? I also just think it's better for Zuko's arc if he doesn't stand up to his dad yet, because then it will mean way more when he eventually does. What this decision showed to me is that the
I agree with that. That is a good point. That's a good point. It's not a random kid. It is his son. I guess for me, it was like, it wasn't a big deal. Like, I think the show had so many problems that, like, I don't feel like I would need to nitpick this. So,
Creators of knockoff Avatar will always choose flash over substance. If we have to fundamentally change 2 important characters so we can get 1 extra minute of pyrotechnics, you bet we're gonna be doing that. Because this is a show for grown-ups. Tell me again why the show made for grown-ups, Netflix's Game of Thrones, had to dumb down its writing. Every line of dialogue is so on the nose.
This was my home. And now it's gone.
They always choose the simplest way to convey a point.
The one thing I do know is I'm the Avatar. And this is just the beginning.
Oh, I get it. Because he's the Avatar, and this is the end of episode 1. Compare these...
Oh yeah. Sorry, really quickly. Brother, you have been following since 2021? And you're going to look me in the eyes and tell me, I don't get how you people can sit around and watch streams like this. You know we can see that number, right? Caught. You know we can see that, right? Just unfollow me. I get it. Your mommy didn't give you enough attention as a kid. And that's why you engage in attention-seeking behavior like this. I get it. I do. But you gotta grow up and move past your mommy issues. You have to. Okay? You have to. The motherless behavior in here is very weird. Very weird. I'm not your mom. Do not call me mommy. Leave. Forever.
Two lines that serve the same function and tell me which of these shows is made for babies.
You will learn respect, and suffering will be your teacher.
Compassion is a sign of weakness.
Compassion is a sign of weakness.
Compassion. It was weakness.
The script feels like a first draft filled with a bunch of placeholders that just ended up holding that place forever. I think the moment that made me realize, oh, they truly don't give a shit about what they're doing here, is when they reused the same twist 3 times. So just like in the original, Zuko objects to the Fire Nation's plan to attack one place as a diversion so they can actually attack somewhere else. But then in the first episode, they added in this thing where the Fire Nation tricks the Earth Kingdom into thinking they're going to attack one place as a diversion so they could actually attack somewhere else. And then in the finale, it's revealed that the whole fight that just took place was, get this, a diversion so they could actually attack somewhere else. How is the rest of the world not catching on by now? They only have one strategy.
The entire world will turn their attention to the Earthbenders.
A masterful ruse, Your Highness.
With the enemy's firepower focused on that diversion, we can launch pinning attacks here.
A masterful ruse, Your Highness.
Why attack the North at all?
Distraction. The North was never the true target.
A masterful ruse, Your Highness.
Not only is that such lazy writing, but the last one doesn't even make sense. They attacked the Northern Water Tribe to distract them from Omashu, but both of those sieges happened over the course of one day. Even if they somehow knew it was happening because they got like an email about it, they still couldn't have gotten there in time to help. And it's not like the Earth Kingdom was distracted from Omashu because they were busy helping the Waterbenders. They weren't there. These two things have nothing to do with each other. This wasn't a diversion. You just did 2 attacks at the same time and one of them worked and one of them didn't. Also, did they not say in episode 4 that they knew Omashu was gonna be attacked?
Fire Nation forces are on the move. They'll be here by dawn.
Why write in that they knew it was going to happen if you're going to make them so unprepared?
A masterful ruse, Your Highness.
We will be, but we will be ready.
Is anyone in the writing room keeping track of things that they've said? I know some people are going to watch this video and accuse me of just being a hater, but like, I didn't want to not like this show. Believe it or not, it's way more fun for me to like stuff than it is to not like stuff. I will root for success for this show and everyone involved. I got genuinely emotional watching the cast react to the news that they got picked up for 2 more seasons, and I didn't even like the first one. I'm just happy for them that they get to keep working on this. I think there's a lot of room to grow, and I'm happy that they're being given the opportunity to try.
Oh, the actor who plays Aang is so adorable. When he's not bald. I'm just kidding. It's just that we never see Aang smile in the show. Ever. He doesn't smile about anything. And when he does, it's like, I'm so happy I could die right now. Wow. It's not good. It's actually seeing a kid laughing and smiling and having a good time. It's like, oh, that's so adorable.
That. I hope that the Netflix corporate overlords who pushed for all the changes that people are complaining about can listen to the criticism and realize that they're only making things worse by intervening.
The bald cap makes him look like
Megamind. They're going to
Megamind.
do that, but I will choose to be blindly optimistic until proven otherwise. At the end of the day, I would rather this show exist than not at all. It didn't cost me $100 million to make. All I had to do was watch it. Avatar is one of my favorite shows of all time, and even if the best thing about this adaptation is that it's convinced people to go back and discover the original series for the first time, I'll take it. And if you are one of those people, welcome. Sorry I spoiled the first 20 episodes, but a lot more stuff happens after that. Season 2 is where everything goes up another level. They haven't even introduced Toph yet. They replaced Admiral Zhao with Azula, and that's a huge upgrade. It gets so fucking good, man. If you haven't seen it yet, just go watch it. What are you waiting for this video to end? It already did.
Excellently done, Drew. You listen, when I've been got, I've been got. A masterful ruse, Your Highness.
I know. I am too old to be getting this worked up over a Netflix remake of a cartoon that came out.
A masterful Drew, you're